I ran 481 miles from St. Paul, Minnesota to Chicago, Illinois. I started this journey on June 1st and it completed on June 14th. This was primarily a self supported run where I pulled everything in a kid runner stroller behind me that had camping gear, clothes, food, and anything extra that I would need to help support me along the way. Now, I did receive help. The first 5 days or so of meals were prepackaged and made and handed off to me by my girlfriend, as well as receiving 2 hotel rooms from my dad along the way. To talk a little bit about the specifics, this run, obviously, like I said, was from St. Paul to Chicago, 481 miles. Now, the unique twist that I added in along the way was competing against 4 college athletes in a Beat My Beer Mile race. So, Beat My Beer Mile is an original race series where I go head to head with current and former college athletes to determine if they can run a faster mile than I can beer mile. With that, in today's video, I want to cover 3 topics to recap what I just did. The first is what went well, the second is what didn't go well, and the third are questions that you all had for me to talk about in today's video. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start with what went well. The physical component to the project was a big undertaking, running on average 34 miles a day, with some days being 18 miles, a couple days being 52 miles, was no small task. Thankfully, my body was well equipped to take on this challenge because of the training that went into it. For those that don't know, I spent the previous year from May 1st, 2023 to April 30th, 2024 taking on a challenge called Calendar Club 365. Now, the concept behind this challenge was running the number of miles equal to the day of the month every month for a full year. So on May 1st, I ran 1 mile. On the 2nd, I ran 2 miles. On the 3rd, I ran 3 miles, all the way up to the 31st of May, where I ran 31 miles. Then on June 1st, I reset back at 1 and did 1 mile, 2 miles, all the way up to the 30th of June. And I did that on repeat every month for 1 full year. At the end of the year, I had 6,400 miles ran for that calendar year. So the pure volume of that calendar year allowed me to feel really confident going into this challenge. Included in the physical component was the strength work that I do with Yoakum Strength. JST is a gym that I go to with the trainer being Austin Yoakum. He and I played football together at St. Thomas, and he has now become my strength coach. I go there 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, doing a 2-hour lifting session with him. Going to Yoakum's gave me that strength foundation that allowed me to feel healthy and strong going through those 481 miles. I was able to do it without pain or soreness because of the elements that I took from the day-to-day grind at Yoakum's. If you're looking for strength training, you really can't go wrong with Austin. He is not only a great trainer, but he's one of my best friends and a guy that I trust with everything that I do. So if you're looking for online or in person, you can visit the link found in the description below, and you can take advantage of 10% off your program using the code DOWDLE10. If you're in the Minneapolis area and you want to show up in person, come stop by, grab a free week, and we'll figure something out. But Yoakum Strength is the place to be if you're looking to achieve your physical fitness goals. The second area that I believe went really well was the actual beer mile challenges that I did. From the filming, which I was a bit concerned about because I have my Sony, I have my GoPro, and then I usually have my girlfriend filming on the iPhone to get an additional view. That was my main concern, was only being able to have 2 cameras that I was going to be able to pull from, and with the Sony being stuck in place, I would only be able to capture half the track. I brought my other tripod and set one up on the other side of the track and was able to utilize all 3 camera angles. With the specific athletes themselves, I thought that Tate, the defensive back for UW lacrosse football team, was the best competition by far. He beat me by 2 seconds, maybe less. I think with the competition, choosing athletes like Tate, like a D3 football player, specifically a wide receiver or a defensive back, is going to be the target for my next competitions. I think it works well because these athletes are not training to run every day, they're training to be successful on the football field, that they're not really going to run a sub 6, which is currently where my best time is at. So it makes it competitive. But these guys want to compete. I remember talking to Tate after the race had finished, and he said that he had watched all of my previous Beat My Beer miles. He watched when I made my moves, how fast I chugged my beers. He knew what to expect. He also knew the mistakes that the other athletes had made. And honestly, that type of competitive fire that he brought in not just the race day energy, but the days leading up and the preparation that he took was, it just made me so excited because to hear someone took the time to take this competition serious enough where he wanted to find a way to beat me, and then having that succeed on race day for him was the ultimate sign of respect. Lastly, the overall budget for this project I set for myself was $1,500, and I was under budget, not by much, but I was under budget at $1,423.91. So $1,423.91 was the final tally for my budget, and I'd be happy to break that down in another video. So leave a comment, let me know if you want me to break down what the cost went to. I'd be happy to do that. Although that might seem like a lot, it is. Although that might seem like a lot, I was going through some of the race registration fees for some of the bigger races that I ultimately want to do, that a lot of professional runners and ultra runners like to do. One of those being Cocodona 250. It is a premier race in Arizona that happens every May. And the entry fee before taxes just to sign up for the race is $1,595 just to sign up for that race. That doesn't include travel fees. That doesn't include the additional gear and food and supplies that you'll need as a runner to bring to that race. That doesn't include housing or any of the other costs. And my 14-day run was under that initial entry fee price. And so for those wondering, this is a big reason why I like doing these self-supported, self-drawn up runs, is because I get to go on this incredible experience. I get to go out and explore and be an adventurer, and I'm still doing it for far less in some cases. Well, in this case, I'm doing it for far less than it would cost me to just sign up for a race. There's really only two things that I thought could have been better, and I will be making improvements for the series upcoming in August. The first is picking athletes that will be competitive for the race. The two races I did against the women, I never felt like I was in any chance of losing those races, particularly the one with Sophie at UW Madison. There was just this feeling that the competition aspect wasn't there. And I think there are levels to it being a male versus female. And I think there are women that can beat me and can make it competitive, especially at the D1 level. I think it's just picking the women that are at the highest level, or it's just going to be a smaller group from which to pull from. One of my most competitive races and the fastest time that I have done in the Beat My Beer Mile Challenge did come from competing against Lindsay Williams, who is a female. She's a professional cross country skier and lifter. So definitely not to say that women can't beat me or can't be competitive. I just think the pool to pull from is going to be smaller in that department. And then going into the fourth and final competition, knowing that the men's golfer, it's not just a male female thing. I think it's a sport specific thing too. Like, there's not going to be many golfers, male or female, that are going to be able to compete at the level that I'm running these mile times in. So when I knew that I was going up against the Marquette men's golfer, I decided to take a chance and do a 2v1 where I picked two of the athletes on the golf team to split a half mile, and each of them ran a half mile. The reason I did this is because for me, this series and these challenges are all about making it competitive. Because when it's competitive, it's fun. And when it's fun, it's entertaining. And when it's entertaining, it makes for good content that translates over to the viewer. And that's ultimately what I want. Like, if I was just going for views, or if I was just going to try and get people that can help grow the audience the most, then it really wouldn't matter their competitive time or their ability or perceived ability to be able to compete with me. It would just be based off who has the most followers, who has the greatest audience. And for me, it's not about that. For me, it really is about having a competitive race because, like I said with Tate, it wasn't, yes, I hate losing. I really strongly dislike losing. But I would rather lose to someone like Tate in that situation where it came down to that last stretch, that last 200, than beat people that they had no chance of beating me to begin with. So those are really that's the first thing. The other thing that I thought could have gone better is my overall planning for this project. Originally, when I was creating the route and breaking it out in segments by day, I forecasted me running at 5 miles per hour. That's typically what I was doing for Calendar Club. But what I forgot and neglected to plan for was me pulling my Kid Runner stroller, which brought me down to a 4 mile an hour pace. And so that kind of screwed up my whole planning and timing of everything. So moving forward into the next project, my planning of where I'll be, when I'll be, will be adjusted based on a 4 mile an hour or 4.5 mile an hour pace instead of 5. And then, with that came the element of the daily vlogs and the editing and uploading of the YouTube videos and the Beat My Beer Mile challenges. Full transparency, like, I'm getting better at it, but from start to finish, to downloading all of the files onto my computer, to editing, to uploading to YouTube for a beer mile challenge, a Beat My Beer Mile challenge, I'm looking at like 2.5 hours. I can do it in an hour and a half if it's like super easy, super clean. But I'm finding myself at 2 to 2.5 hours per video. And that's just the editing. Then it's another hour to 2 hours for it to upload into YouTube. And if I don't have a good connection, like I didn't in many of these cases, then that uploading time can be anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. And that's why having the occasional hotel or motel along the way was super helpful, because then I could sit down and know that I had a place for all of my stuff, that it was going to be safe. I could upload and just keep the computer out and running and plugged in. And I knew by morning it was going to be uploaded. So moving forward, like, putting in days that were strictly for editing and uploading to make sure that I was staying up to date on those aspects. The last thing we're going to get into is some Q&As that I'm going to rip through real quickly here. So I do Q&As on my Instagram. So if you want to go follow me, or just throw in Q&As for me to answer here in the later videos, then it's mark.dowdle, just like it is here on YouTube. Okay. What does purpose mean, and what makes you want to share your journey with the world? So this is one that I posted about yesterday, but one of my purposes and reasons I got into running to begin with, or found the love of running, was in college. I used alcohol to escape my problems, and that was a big thing that I learned through running is that I wasn't finding myself as closed off or angry at the world when I'd get back from a run. And so through running, I was able to develop this almost sort of therapy and peace that I could find within myself. And then the athlete took over and started to put these challenges and bigger challenges on the calendar that allowed me to get to the place where I'm running 481 miles in 14 days. But my purpose always goes back to trying to help that kid who was passed out at a pregame that didn't make it out to the bar, or blacked out at the bar because I wasn't able to deal with the problems going on in my life in a very direct and honest way. And so part of my purpose, and part of the purpose of me going to work and challenge these athletes, is to get connected and reconnected with that athlete version myself in college, or that version of myself that may still be out there playing on these teams, that hopefully I can be a positive influence to them in their lives. Being a college athlete is not easy. Being a college athlete in today's day and age is not easy. And so all of those questions, all of those unknowns, the uncertainties of what you have to deal with in a season, let alone the transition from being a college athlete to graduating and now being thrust out into the universe and not knowing exactly what you're going to do. People ask you, what your goals are, what your dreams are. And for the longest time, all of those have been wrapped up in being an athlete. And so I just want to shed a light and be a leader by example of the life that you can live outside of your college sport, the life outside of being a student athlete. And so part of my purpose is continuing to engage with that younger version myself and be a light to that person, because at the end of the day, that is who I'm leading. That is who I'm creating a mentor for. The 21-year-old Mark who felt lost and uncertain and didn't know where to go. And I'm not fully there yet, and I still make tons of mistakes, and I'm not perfect, but I'm in a much better, healthier situation in my life because of what I've done in running and because of the steps that I've taken to become the person that I am and growing into. So that's a piece of my purpose, and that's why, I don't care that the people want to give me shit for NA. I still drink beer. Like I still drink alcohol. Like I'm not opposed to that. But me doing these challenges isn't about the alcohol, and the alcohol doesn't take a impact or effect of the race time itself. And so I saw it as an opportunity to not necessarily really have to focus on the alcohol, but focus on what this mission represents and how I can still do it, and how people who are struggling with alcohol can still participate, where it doesn't have to be this specific certain way, because that's not what it's about. It's about a challenge. It's about coming together, and it's about doing a difficult thing like drinking a carbonated beverage and then pushing through all of the stuff that's going on in your stomach and sprinting that next lap. So that's a piece of my purpose. Yeah, so this question is, was the end harder than the middle? I think the end was more difficult mentally than the middle because of what I talked about earlier, of having these challenges or tasks to do along the way. Where after I'd done the Marquette run, the next day I had 2.5 days to my end destination, and it just felt like I knew I could accomplish the rest of this challenge. I knew I could get to where I was going, and it was just about going through the motions with no carrot pushing me forward. So the end was much more difficult because it felt like I had completed the challenge, but I still had 2 days or 89 miles of running left. Let's do a few more here. Bum bum. Best and worst experience of the previous run. So it's kind of it's this two sides of the same coin. On, gosh, I think it was day 8, I got a flat tire in near Verogua, Wisconsin, out in the middle of nowhere. But I noticed that my wheels were, the tread was super low and I could see a bump forming. And I was on the phone with my girlfriend. I was like, this doesn't look good. And 2 minutes later, I just hear the of the air coming out. And the tire was done. And I wheeled it up to the or wheeled it down to the bottom of the hill, and there were these 2 houses. And I figured this is the only chance that I have at figuring out how to move forward, because I'm 3 miles from the next gas station. I'm 15 miles from the next town with a bike shop. So I got to figure something out. So I knocked on the door of the house in front of me, and she had a tire pump. And my goal, my intention with that was to pump it up, patch it up, get to the gas station, or figure out a way that I could get to the bike shop before it closed. Well, that wasn't working. The tire was completely effed. And she was kind enough to offer to drive me with my stroller 15 miles, which was like 25 minutes, to this bike shop, sit and wait with me to get it fixed, drive me back to our house, because I wanted to start where I left off so I didn't cheat any of those miles. And she was nice enough to do all that. She spent 2.5 hours with me, driving me, waiting, and driving me back. And it was just it was a reminder of how people are placed. And I'll say it, God will place people in your life when you need it most. And this woman was placed right there, and God placed me right there in that situation to move forward through this problem. And it was a reminder of how people really do want to help you if you're going through a rough time, if you have the courage to ask for it. And it doesn't matter if they're friends or family or strangers. There are good people out in this world. And it was another reminder that, gosh, the Midwest, there's something to the Midwest where I don't know if I necessarily would have gotten that out in the West Coast or the East Coast. Maybe. But I think there's something special about the Midwest that, I mean, whether I was going through, whether it was that situation or all through these old country towns, the people are so kind and curious and wanting to help and wanting to know what you're up to. And that was really, I think, a shock at first, but then it became this incredible blessing that people were just curious and wanted to help and wanted to get involved. And that was something that I found really cool. I really enjoyed that aspect to it. I think that's the last question I'm going to go through. I am going to put up another video tomorrow about what I'm doing next and go more in depth on that. I did post a reel or a short yesterday that talked a little bit about that. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to do for now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.